Mr. Graffeo.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How's it going today?
Good so far.
How's little baby Benjamin?
He is awesome. He's not so little anymore. He's huge. Not huge, but he's really tall. I think he's 26 inches long now, and he's pushing 20 pounds, I think. So he's growing. When we took him to his last doctor's appointment, they said he's grown like a weed. So, but he's cool. He's starting to talk and babble a lot more. So it's a really cool thing to watch. And he's going to eat us out of house and home. If not when he's a toddler, definitely when he's a teenager. So
That's awesome, Mr. Graffeo. And so, just kind of hitting up the interview. We just want to kind of start. Not a lot of people know about your childhood and just how you grow up and just, I guess, your early musical moments per se. So, did you grow up in a musical household at all?
kind of. My parents were very supportive of any music that my sister and I wanted to pursue. They got her piano lessons when she was young. My dad played, sorry about that. My dad played drum set in a 60s and 70s rock cover band. And they played at September Fest a lot. They were kind of like hometown cover band people. So there was a drum set up somewhere in the house for a while, and that just kind of became a natural pathway. So when it came time to join for band in junior high, I did that thinking I could join on drums, and then I was wrong. I was told you have to pick one of these four, and then you can do drums. And I said, okay. So I did one of those four, and I was probably the worst trumpet player in the history of trumpet players. And it's kind of funny to think back now when I get mad at people that write their fingerings in, because that's what I did. I made sure that all paths led to drums. That's all that mattered. So then I got there, and lo and behold, drums in concert band are not a drum set. So that was fun. So, but yeah, my parents weren't overtly musical. My dad didn't read music. He just played from recordings. But it was supportive of music. So.
That's awesome. At what point in your time in high school did you start liking marimba? Like almost to the point that you like drum kit? Or is there a tier there?
I think I like drum set a little less than I like marimba now. I like them all equally. My schooling kind of led me to be well-rounded. There are some schools where when you're a percussionist, they'll kind of make you become a specialist depending on what you're doing. And mine didn't. It was, you had to be well-rounded. You need to be as proficient on one as the other. So I think I started liking marimba toward the end of my freshman year, because there was a senior who played probably one of the easiest beginner marimba solos ever, but I'd never seen it. And it was a C Refractions by Mitchell Peters. It's a 4-mallet marimba solo. And I saw that, I'm like, you can do that on that thing? Because until then, as a percussionist, the bell part mimics the flute part, and it's boring. So then I started seeing that, and then I started taking private lessons toward halfway through my freshman year, and really digging into reading and getting into that. And then once I started getting into more solo literature and less etude and exercise stuff, that's when I really started enjoying it a lot more.
Mm-hmm. And when you're playing these instruments, like who did you look up to in terms of like role models, in terms of who you wanted to sound like?
Oh gosh, there's a laundry list. I think it depends on the instrument. Drum set, I always looked up to John Bonham because he could hit the snot out of him. Keith Moon, because he just had some really nice fills. I didn't listen to a whole lot of jazz growing up, so then when I started listening to jazz, Art Blakey, Buddy Rich, obviously, those would be the drum set guys. Marimba, I really liked Zivkovic for a while, and then I got into some of the Japanese artists, Nane Mamura and Keiko Abe and Shii Wu. There's a great list. One of my favorite artists, Katarzyna Maika, is one of them. She's got a really great recording of Marimba Spiritual. Vibes, Gary Burton, Stefan Harris. Timpani, I never really had a role model. I just played them. It's not bad, but there are plenty of people that play timpani, and they all try and play in the same way. And yeah, there's some hand drumming ones, and there's a list of some other folks, but I won't bore the board report with them.
That's awesome. So moving on kind of to your high school time in high school, what was I know you're, as many people know, you're a part of the band program along with Mr. I. And so what was your like favorite memory or favorite moments in band when you're in high school?
There are a lot. I mean, obviously the shenanigans, because that's part of being a high school kid. I will not elaborate on the shenanigans. They were my shenanigans and my friend's shenanigans. And now I've said the word shenanigans enough. I think there are a lot of points, and they all kind of revolved around, just the communal sense of playing, and like that moment when the piece comes together, or that moment where you're all just like talking in between rehearsals about stuff. Like that was a lot of it from high school, those memories. Definitely have a lot of memories from Drumline, and we were just as active as we are with the Drumline now. So it's just kind of interesting to think back, and it's really hard to find one memory, I guess, because there are so many, and they're all like little bits of memories along the way that kind of make the whole picture up through there. Like there are a lot of cool things. One of the things that always kind of stands out, it's not really a great memory, it's just kind of a funny one. We used to do these things with Mr. Miller called gratitude journals, and there was one guy in the class that was a kind of a jokester, we'll say. And he wrote down that he was grateful for, and it was something we did during Thanksgiving, like, what are you grateful for? And he wrote down the cool side of the pillow. And everyone thought that he was joking. And it's just like, why? What? He's like, no, because, and he went into this very well thought out, like inspirational reason why having the cool side of a pillow was the greatest thing. And why, like, that makes him privileged, because not everyone has the right to have that. And it was just like, everyone's like jaw just dropped. We're like, what? You? So that's just like something random that sticks out in my head. But I mean, a lot of the stuff, like we got to play for a lot of really cool things. We played, my senior year, we played Ave Maria at, I can never remember if it was at a church or if it was a little city, but it was a really, really powerful performance. So that was probably the coolest musical memory that I can at least think of right now.
Cool. Outside of band, like, were you involved in any sports or activities while you were in high school?
I did soccer when I was a freshman, and at the time, I did a lot of SAA before that, and then my year there was a lot of competition in basketball, which is the other thing I did, and I was smart enough to know that I had no chance on any team. So I did soccer, and then after that I was kind of like, I think I'm done. And then I don't think I tried out my sophomore year because I started wanting to get more into music. But that's the only sport and other activities or clubs. I did Tri-M, I did NHS. I was trying to get into small engines for a little bit and then realized I wasn't good at that either. So I tried a little bit, but then I really immersed myself in what the music department had. And, the mantra was kind of the same. You can make the program what you want it. And I just made it a place where I didn't leave. So I always found something to do there, whether it was fixing percussion instruments or practicing or hanging out or helping the directors. So that's I made that was like my hobby within and of itself.
Kind of going back to Drumline a little bit, would you say, is there a lot more similarities to Drumline there was back then versus now, just in terms of like communal sense, or even just like the way it was ran versus then versus now?
It's a little different. I think that as we have grown more compassionate as a society, so has Drumline. It's nothing like the movie, thank God. But the communal sense, I think, is always there, because when you're bringing people together, and you're working on this like fundamental concept that is just keeping time together and locking in these rhythms. There's something about it that kind of gets you working, at least while you're doing that. I think and I don't know the communal aspect necessarily to a level of specificity right now that might be there, but I know like we were very tight. We were a very tight group, and even though we had kind of other friend groups that we hung out with, it was a really tight core of people, and it was a very creative group of people, because that was kind of the time before, you could look up a cadence on YouTube or find music on Google. You had somebody that went to go see a college football game, and they would come back like, I wrote half of these down on the car ride on the way home. We've got to try and flesh these out and figure this out. And we're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So we were writing sideline cadences. I mean, most of the sideline cadences that are played now are actually written by someone who was the drum captain my junior year, and they've stayed. And some of them are from even further before that. And then other ones have just kind of been added along the way. So the communal aspects there, I think it looks a little different, but I think it still exists. And, I think we were just, we weren't able to connect via cell phone, because that was still when you had to pay for text messaging. So you kind of saw each other that day, you left and you came back. And that was just what we did. There was no online gaming. There was no, you did your work, you did your hobby, you did your work for if you had a job, and you drummed. That was it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think at least from what I could tell, drumline seems very, very tight, and it's definitely, especially all those cadences. It's always such an awesome time just listening and playing along and dancing to those cadences.
I haven't heard their origin story before, so that's pretty cool. When you were in college, let's just switch on over to that. I'm gonna mess up the name. Is it Western or Eastern?
Eastern.
Okay.
Go Panthers.
Eastern Illinois University?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got that for the morning. What made you want to go to Eastern Illinois University?
There were a couple things. So my college auditions did not go well. I was not a great player coming out of high school. I auditioned at Northern and U of I and did not get in. And those were like the two schools and Northern was such a stupid reason. Like the only reason I wanted to go there is because we went there on band days. Like never visited the school, didn't know the faculty. I was just like, I like the band day, so I think I want to go there for college. Very informed. But with that being said, I didn't get into either of those two schools. And I was kind of like, all right, clearly this isn't for me. I need to think of a plan B and kind of figure that out. So I was actually, I canceled my Eastern audition, but the memo didn't get through to the instructor. And he actually called the two band directors at the time. And he was going to be up into the Chicagoland area for a gig and said, can I just audition him at your school? And I was like, well, I don't really have a choice now, do I? So I did, and it was great. I was like, what's the harm? So Terrence Mayhew came up and did my audition there. It was probably the best audition I had, so there is something to be said about home turf. And he said, I have a spot for you if you want to come down. If you've never been to the campus, you should come visit it first. Make sure you like the campus. Make sure you like what we're doing. So after that, I think the next weekend, my mom and I went down to the campus and saw the two percussion ensembles, sat in our private lesson, and watched the wind ensemble play. And then we took a tour of the campus with Rob Reeder, who does a lot of help with our drumline stuff, was down there at the time, showed me around. And I was just like, I'm sold. Where do I sign? And we went to the student account office or whatever, where you sign, where those papers get mailed, and we signed up, and it was the greatest accidental decision of my life. So
it's fantastic.
Yeah. And so talking about your teacher, how is Terrence Mayhew like? Just like, what would you learn from him, and just like what was like some of the stuff you really took away from learning from him?
Oh man, that I let's see, he was my instructor there for three years, because then I had another one. So if I had 3 years of this interview to tell you everything that he taught me, because I swear there was like a golden nugget every day, but He was an amazing percussionist. He was an amazing man. He still is. He's alive. And he was just so cool. Like the atmosphere that he created within that percussion ensemble, you wanted to work for him. You wanted to get better, and he wanted you to get better too. Like, and the cool thing about Eastern, as opposed to some other places, is that he really let you, once you got through kind of the intro stuff to make sure that your technique was in order, he really kind of let you choose your own adventure of what you wanted to do. So I wanted to be really well-rounded with everything and basically have a performance degree worth of literature without doing the degree. He said, great, here you go. This is the path. And then he just said, go on YouTube and find stuff, listen to your friends and find things. So that was a really cool thing. But he taught me how to be a successful working musician. I think was one of the biggest things that he gave me, because he gigged a lot, as a lot of us still do when we get our main job. And, you know, just the way that he taught us how to approach auditions and how to prepare yourself and how to carry yourself was great. And then just creating those interpersonal relationships to gain contacts and things like that was a really big lesson, aside from all of those individual lessons that we did working on music. And that's something that you two will get to experience, which is really cool, is the bond that you'll create with your private your private instructor is really, really special. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I'm really excited to meet, not to really work with my lesson teacher these next 4 years. I'm really excited and just like just what I'm gonna learn. I'm sure Ryan would say the same thing.
Absolutely. You said he was open to letting you guys kind of choose your own adventure. Were there any more ensemble type groups that you were a part of while you were in college?
Yes, I was in almost every ensemble you could be. I was in jazz combos for my whole time there. I filled in the lab band once or twice. I was in the Wind Symphony for my time there. I had a brief stint I kind of subbed in the orchestra whenever they needed. And then we had 2 percussion ensembles that I was in. And I started a percussion duo with a really good friend of mine. We played a couple duo pieces going through there. So, but that's a lot of ensembles, especially that's freshman through senior year. So that kind of, that fills up your plate a lot working on that, plus all of the other materials, because like I was saying, you know, Terrence really stressed well-roundedness. So with private lessons, we weren't just doing like, oh, this is snare week or this is vibraphone week. It was, you've got snare, vibraphone, timpani, marimba, and maybe something else, and you need to get all of those things ready. And we'll come up with a plan and alternate, but those need to be making equal progress through. Same with all the jazz and orchestra and wind ensemble stuff too. So. Mm-hmm. I was required to be in choir for 1 semester. It was fine. The choir was fine. The person I had to stand next to was not. That was one of 2 basses, and his name was Don Short, and he was probably like 7'5", and he would on a daily basis remind you that that's funny. It was not funny the second time or any time after that.
I'm sure Miss Espel will be very impressed with your musical or your vocal skills.
She's heard me sing. She's not impressed.
So when you got your first job out of college at Johnsburg High School, how did you get the job?
It was a little later in the summer. And I mean, I'd been applying all summer to jobs. There were not a whole lot of jobs in high school really available. There are some really big ticket ones that were, and typically those go to some people that have a little bit more experience. And so it was kind of mid-June, end of June. I'd have to look at my exact date. I think I got the acceptance in the beginning of July. So it was kind of stressful at first because I didn't have a job when I thought I would have a job. And now I'm like, crap, what do I do now? Because, you know, I have to, you know, pay bills and get a job and be a functioning member of society. So this interview came along because the band director wanted to leave to go pursue his master's at the University of Iowa. So it came up, and my wife and her family live in Johnsburg, where we live now. And it was kind of like, oh, this is all very fortuitous. Like there was a lot of things that kind of led, like, I don't believe in fate. I think you kind of choose your own destiny, but it was kind of like, oh, this seems too good to not work. So took the job. And, when you have less than 3 weeks to prepare for band camp for kids, you have no idea how they are. It's interesting. So they did call me in to meet the kids because they did at least gave me that. So I met some of the student leadership with the former band director just to kind of get the ball rolling. So it was fun, but it's one of those things. It's like we have that joke, the meme where everything's on fire and this is fine. That's kind of how you feel in your first job, because here you're taking all of like, I'm Mr. College person. I learned everything I need to know. And then you're like, step one, they didn't teach me that. Shoot. And then you're like pulling on all the other resources of knowledge that you have. And that's why I'm thankful for my experiences, because I had some really good teachers that laid some good foundations for me to know what to do. But it was interesting. Like you're learning kids, and you're learning how you want to teach and what your teacher voice sounds like. And I was like trying to, my first half of a year, try to be a teacher that I wasn't comfortable being. And then it took me a long time to realize that. And then after that, it was great. But my favorite, it was a really cool school. It was a fun place to be. There was a lot of freedom and flexibility to try things. Not that there aren't at Schaumburg, but there's kind of, I think the Schaumburg community has an expectation level for band where, unfortunately, the expectation level for band at Johnsburg is a little bit of a revolving door of who the directors are. So it looks different a lot. And I, of course, felt a little bad about being a part of that revolving door, but the opportunity for Schaumburg opened up and I wasn't going to miss it. But I learned a lot from those 3 years there. And I value a lot of what I learned and the people that taught me. And I really appreciate that school gave me a chance to cut my teeth and to figure out that this is definitely the right thing for me to do.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so there was a job opening at Schaumburg, right? And obviously you took it because you're here now. So what was it like coming back to Schaumburg, after spending your time in college and then Johnsburg? And so how's the transition like this coming back to your old alma mater, I guess, if you want to say?
It's interesting. I mean, you think that you're expecting everything to change, I think, in those times, because it's like, you're 7-8 years removed at that point. And some things do and some things don't. And, I think that Mr. Miller and Mr. Tips made such a strong foundation of a program. It was a really easy thing to kind of transition from a small high school to a larger one. I never went in thinking like, oh, I know everything, because you're doing the same thing again. It's like getting a first job. You're relearning kids. You're, seeing if your teaching methodologies work with this group of people, because, we say band kids are band kids everywhere, which is 100% true. But there are differences a little bit here and there when it comes to nitty gritty, how you're teaching and what you're delivering and what content is important for those kids. And it was definitely interesting. It was teaching at Schaumburg was always one of my career goals. I didn't think that it was something that would happen so soon. So when I applied and got it, I was really excited. And also because there are a lot of people, I always feel like I have something to prove. There are a lot of people when you're going around the round table, not to flash back to college, like, oh, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go teach at this school. And a lot of them are like, haha, good luck. I went, I'm going to do it. And they're like, no, you won't. Like, you'll literally never break into that job. I'm like, okay. So I did. I'm just like, take that. So that was a fun little thing for me. But no, that was something that I always wanted to do. So like, I mean, I take that every day with like, okay, how do we make this work? How do we keep going the traditions that are there, and how do we keep it better? It's definitely interesting seeing and relating to some of the teachers that I had in classes as now colleagues. So like, I still can't call some people by their first names. They are still Mr. or Mrs. or whatever their title is or was. So it's cool. It is really cool though, to be able to come back and give to the school community that gave me not only my start in all of this, but gave me so much support as a human and as a student getting up to there.
Hmm. Absolutely. And like I like it must be I'm sure it was super weird just kind of like coming back and just kind of seeing how, I don't say how things change, but just kind of how everything kind of stayed the same, but just kind of over time it just kind of changed, just but very slightly.
Yeah, exactly. With different, you guys know, with different students comes different personalities, and they have little spins, and they want to make different things happen, and then you're kind of helping, twist that into what you want it to be as well. So it just becomes it's a different working relationship. But it's really cool to have it be such a fluid type of a program where we can make those changes to reflect your guys' personalities as they come through.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been a band director for how many years now at Schaumburg?
At Schaumburg, this was year 6.
6. So what like big takeaways have you learned from being a band director here?
Again, do you have 6 years that we? Man, there's a lot. I know one big change going from one place to another is having a co-director that I get to work with. My first job, I would ask the cinder block wall what it thought of the musical decisions we were making. Now it's nice to have a human do that and then hear better ideas come back and have a back and forth. So that's a really valuable thing, is having someone in the room that you're working on a program with. I think as always, it's a reminder of to be flexible. Sometimes, we think, oh, this will work great. And then it doesn't, and go, okay, great. We can either cry about it or we can fix it or pick something new that'll work better. So it's kind of figuring those things out. I think it's, for what I feel like we're trying to do, is kind of see what we can do to make the experience better for you guys. So I know there's a lot going in there over those 6 years of, okay, where do we kind of want to go in just a broad strokes? Like if we were to have this end goal in mind, and it doesn't have to be anything specific, like if this is what we want our groups to be doing, how do we get there, and kind of building that process along the way. So I think having a more long-term vision for a program, not just like the year to year, because as students, you'll start to live in semesters, and especially if you get in a job, like I don't equate the normal calendar. Like December isn't December to me. It's the end of second or the end of first semester. So like it takes a while to get out of that. But then once you start thinking about that long-term growth, it really kind of changes your way of thinking a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are a awesome band director. Something I personally learned from you is just playing with passion, playing with heart. I remember I believe it was symphonic band. It was either my sophomore year or junior year, but there was a piece where there's a big cymbal crash, right? And then you inverted the cymbal.
It happened. It was a complete accident, but it was a nice emphasis on how you need to play with something. So.
But yeah, and that's something I really took away. And Ryan, what's something you kind of took away?
You're putting me on the spot.
It's okay to say nothing.
You've always pushed me to work a lot harder than, I don't know. When I started this, I started on xylophone, and I didn't want to stay there. And I don't think I've told anyone this. Sophomore to junior year, I didn't work too hard on my audition. I didn't work hard on it at all. So I showed up and I played eights wrong on tenors. And that was it just was not the best moment. But you called and you told me that if I wanted it, I'd have to really work at it. And I took it to a lot more heart then, and I just never paid as much attention to it before then. But that really helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've certainly had those moments too. Where I'm just because we are where we are. We are not perfect musicians by any means, but it's I appreciate you guys saying those things. It's very nice to hear for sure. It's one of those things, sometimes you learn from those more negative or more, hard-hitting moments from those things rather than a simple talk. But definitely learning from, yeah, that's great.
So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. But do you want to make any final remarks to the band? Just speaking right to the band, for all those who are watching right now.
Well, first of all, thank you all for making it this far into me talking. I know normally I don't talk this much, even in rehearsal, which is hard to imagine. But I think this is really cool what you two are doing to try and keep people connected. So that's great. This is definitely some interesting, I hate saying like all the cliche stuff, so I'm just not going to, but you guys are navigating some very interesting parts of your life right now that your kids even might not need to go through. And I think right now what you guys do in this time will help set you up for success when we do return to a sense of what that normalcy looks like. So I think that it's real important for you guys to keep connecting with each other. I think it's important to try and keep playing, if not to better your musical skill, just to better your heart and your soul, because it is something that is a passionate, connected moment that you're making with this, instrument. But I think more important than that is just making sure you're all staying connected with each other. I thought this year was a really cool year of a lot of expanded section connectivity, whether it was through group chats or hearing people hang out or, individual concert band clusters of people. Keep that going. There's no reason that you can't. And if anything, right now is a reason where they should be stronger. I know I've made some reconnections with some people I haven't talked to since college over the last several months, and it's incredibly valuable, and it just makes my heart feel more whole as a result of that, being able to kind of have those connections at this distance. So keep the connections there, keep playing, and we're still planning on everything. Your second clue is coming up on Monday.
Fantastic.
All right. I'm super excited for the new clue, and the day that this comes up, it's gonna be May 4th. So May the 4th be with you,
and also with you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Graffeo. It was awesome to have you on, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for having me. Stay safe and enjoy your time.
All right. Have a good one, Mr. Graffeo.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed. We will be seeing you again this Wednesday with our special guest.
Drum roll.
So yeah, Mr. Tips will be coming on Wednesday, I believe, and so that'll be really, really exciting. And also, with the day this comes out is May 4th, so May the 4th be with you all,
and also with you.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll leave you guys. Hope to see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Have fun, guys.